Today's video is sponsored by Arc.io. MarketSquare by Arc.io released a new video called The Blockchains of Ready Player One. In the movie Ready Player One, the real economy moves to a virtual reality setting. Players earn digital currencies by objectives in the virtual reality. Real-world items and NFT items that enhance gameplay could be purchased using the digital cash. MarketSquare's video discusses how blockchains are used in virtual reality. NFT platforms like Engine, oracles like Chainlink, and digital currencies like XRP sound complicated, but after watching this short film, it really clicks on how they can come together for some really interesting use cases. The narrator does an excellent job in explaining how the tech can be used in layman's terms. Not only is the content really interesting, but the video editing is professional. An interesting fact that I've learned is the World of Warcraft's gold is now 7 times stronger than Venezuelan currency. Video game gold is stronger than a sovereign currency. MarketSquare's video's link is in the description below. Be sure to check them out. The more corrupt the state, the more numerous the laws. Tactus. You're about to witness massive disruption. Please keep your friends and family aware. Like, subscribe, share these videos. Please remember that I am not a financial advisor.
And we are also here at the Bundesbank currently having a project that works on a so-called trigger solution. So we would have blockchain, private blockchain that triggers payments in our Target 2 system in central bank money. And I think the main point, as Jay already mentioned, is that would preserve that two-tier system. At the moment, we distribute our central bank money to our to the commercial banks, basically, and don't engage directly with retail customers. And in that sense, with that trigger solution, we could preserve that two-tier system. And I think we should explore those solutions as well, which are less invasive in a sense and less disruptive than CBDC before we take that step to introduce CBDC.
The Bundesbank, the Dutch central bank, has announced a trigger solution.
Trigger solution, connecting digital assets with payments in central bank money. Today, the usage of distributed ledger technology, or DLT, is increasing throughout the economy. More assets, such as securities, can be exchanged on DLT already. When it comes to settlement, the question is how to connect these new digital technologies to conventional payment environments.
From the old system to the new, there needs to be a bridge. Deutsche Börse, Swisscom, and partners successfully settle security transactions via tokens in Switzerland.
The lack of a true connection between the existing and the new world causes high operative and counterparty risk when one party fails to deliver its part of the transaction. Delivery versus payment and synchronization between DLT and existing infrastructures is essential here. The solution is a technical bridge that consists of 2 parts. A trigger chain connects the central bank payment system, Target 2, to the DLT world and triggers the payments. The transaction coordinator then synchronizes the asset chain and the trigger chain to initiate payment if, and only if, the assets change ownership.
There needs to be a connection between the existing world and the new world, one without counterparty risk. In this security settlement PDF by Boris Group, it shows that there's interoperability between Hyperledger Fabric and Corda. There's also a need for cross-chain secure settlement, and Swisscom is involved. You may remember Swisscom blockchain is in collaboration with Ripple.
The resulting and well-proven delivery versus payment settlement minimizes the counterparty risk for all market participants. Like this, digital asset transactions can be settled in safe and stable central bank money using the existing payment infrastructure. The solution enables cross-chain atomic transactions, even with hybrid ledgers. Due to its technology-agnostic approach, it can connect various DLTs to each other, as well as straight to Target 2.
You may remember a while back there was a lot of hype revolving around Ripple and the Taz Group. It so happens that the Taz Group is at the heart of the Target 2 system. Technology-agnostic approach and bridging ledger to ledger sounds a lot like Interledger to me.
Like this, the trigger chain and the transaction coordinator help prepare the markets of today for the world of tomorrow.
I mean, I tend to be somewhat of a simple person, so I think of it almost as, kind of a layer cake. So at the very core is, you can call it the payments operating system. And the operating system is run by central banks and infrastructures like that. Then above that, you could have, sort of quasi, sort of, public-private type layers. Then you have Swift, and then you have, people like JP Morgan on top. And then, frankly, on top of that, you can even have, other technology companies, because again, as I think others referenced, especially Cecilia, I mean, increasingly technology companies are getting into the payments realm, and payments are becoming a critical part of their infrastructure, their offering, et cetera. And that's, sort of resulted in this explosion of innovation in this space. So when you think about this, I think there's been lots of innovation at the top layer. But there's not been a tremendous amount of innovation at the core layer or the operating system layer. So I think in my mind, what we are here discussing is how do we think about the operating system evolving itself. And I think CBDCs is frankly one very exciting way they could operate. They could evolve as an operating system. There's also other ways they could evolve. So, fundamentally changing the RTGS systems, making them real time. Frankly, even in some cases, the top layer right now, which is the payment providers or tech companies, non-banks, could have direct access to the operating system. Many jurisdictions in the world are now increasingly allowing that. So I think all of that is an interesting set of developments.
Fintechs are able to redesign the whole financial system. Efficient systems are emerging using crypto assets instead of central bank money. Ripple is a fintech working with central banks and offering solutions to allow the old system to catch up to the innovations crypto has to offer. Central bank digital currencies is an update to the core financial layer, but CBDCs are a while away. There is a way to bridge the old world with the new world. The Earthports, Temenos, SAP, Finastra that are Ripple enabled are examples of these bridges from old world to new world.
On infrastructure for CBDCs and beyond. At Swift, as I said, we're asking ourselves the question about how we might facilitate interoperability between fiat, digital fiat, and token-based currencies, but as well about the different underlying technologies that support them, whether they're DLT, APIs, or other.
Ripple has positioned themselves between the two worlds and has focused on interoperability. Now Swift needs to connect the new world, the DLT infrastructure, to the old world. How will this happen? If CBDCs are years away, how can they instantly settle between walled gardens?
But when you think about the end-to-end wholesale payments, and leaving retail aside for a sec, to Javier's point, they are relatively quite efficient, but they are efficient for select corridors, and they are efficient for select currencies. So obviously, G7 or even G20, they work really well. I think increasingly the world is moving beyond those corridors. I mean, especially with the rise of global trade.
Another thing I mentioned to David backstage, I was talking to one of the largest global money center banks on the planet, and I was talking to them about our primary product, fiat to fiat, called X Current. And this guy kind of interrupts me. He's like, yeah, that's nice, but I have a problem settling into Peru. Can I use XRP to help me settle into Peru? And honestly, I was like, holy, here's one of the biggest banks in the world who has more liquidity than almost anybody out there. And I'm not even trying to talk to him about crypto and digital assets. I'm trying to talk to him about the core of fiat to fiat. And he's already looking ahead and realizing that, look, this is something that could help me solve a problem in Peru. And I don't want to necessarily hold currency in Peru from an inflation point of view, or a regulatory risk point of view, compliance risk. So they're looking for other solutions. And again, if you solve a real problem for real customers, it's going to work out.
Ripple has had a strategy from day one. The on-demand liquidity corridors are exotic corridors. They have worked from the bottom up. In this interview, Brad mentions that this was a major money center bank. I'm going out on a limb and saying that money center bank is Bank of America due to the patents we have seen, the Global Payment Steering Group. What happens when one of the largest banks in the world adopt a XRP-enabled solution? The other money center banks will be at a disadvantage. This will cause FOMO. A network effect will happen rapidly.
Do we need, apart from the center of the layer cake, if I can put it that way, or the middle layer, or whatever it is, do we actually need publicly issued money for citizens? Or can citizens rely on privately issued money, properly regulated, with the highest level being done, or the middle of the layer cake being done by the private sector. And of course, we have a bad history of private monies in a number of countries when they go wrong. But on the other hand, you can argue and solve those problems with regulation, and majority of our money in society today is private claims, not public. I think then that's a huge issue. I guess my view on that is, in the end, the confidence in money kind of rests on the ability of the holder to transfer it into the safest asset. And though they may never do that, the fact they know they can do that just anchors the whole system. And therefore there is a reason for citizens to have access to publicly state money, or the safest form of money, publicly state money, or the safest form of money. In some countries, state money is not the safest form, but to have access to the safest form, because that's what, when stress really comes, acknowledge that they can.
He's contemplating the idea of a private digital currency like XRP. If they're fully regulated and are able to convert to the nation's fiat when stress arises, if a solution is using private digital currency, there needs to be assurance from the central bank that it can be converted into sovereign money at any time.
The involved jurisdictions implement some specific links between these two systems, which requires them to coordinate their infrastructures. One option is a shared technical interface between the two separate infrastructures. This allows participants in one system to make payments to those in another system directly through the provided technical interface and without requiring any middlemen. This approach is, for example, followed in one of the European Central Bank and Bank of Japan Project Stella reports. A common clearing mechanism instead takes a different approach, interlinking systems through designated settlement accounts. For example, in the East African payment system, participating central banks hold accounts with one another to make and receive payments. Central banks could hence allow other central banks to hold their CBDC and vice versa, acting as correspondents for their domestic distributors. Such a system could reduce the number of involved relationships in a cross.
Ripple has made great strides at central banks. Some central banks are paying Ripple customers. Others have tested interledger protocol. The designs of these CBDC systems are clunky and reinventing the same problems of correspondent banking, but with an updated system. What happens if central banks started using the XRP ledger? If central banks had a private version of the XRP ledger for themselves, and for cross-border payments they used the public version of XRP?
At the start, whether we go from a layer cake to a network of some sort, a multi-tiered network, a 3D network, who knows? I mean, but I think we have to keep our mind open, and we have to actually somehow suspend our own belief in our own right to exist the way we do today, which is kind of hard to say when you're sitting in the private sector. But I think the more we hold on to our current business models, the more there's a risk that you will be made obsolete by someone else. So again, I'll stop there. I know that's
Crypto and the power of technology cannot be contained. Farouk understands that there is a risk that the banks will become obsolete. They need to adapt. Great empires are not maintained by timidity, tactus. Thank you for liking, watching, and subscribing. If you enjoy these videos, please share these videos. If you want to watch these videos earlier and without ad interruption, please consider joining my Patreon. Thank you for watching.